It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Good moment. This is Barnet Bain. I'm here on Cutting Edge Consciousness again. It's good to be back. Where am I today? Let me check my calendar. Freeman Michaels, my co-host. You're looking happy and well.
I'm here as well.
And a very nice haircut. A lot of good personal grooming today. That's good.
Yeah, got to groom.
So
gotta
Jasmine,
groom
Jasmine cleaned you up a little bit.
Well, she nudged me towar's the towards making the appointment and going and seeing the guy who cuts my hair.
Yeah, that's a $70 haircut too.
It is. I've upgraded. I used to have
you
a
should
much.
Be getting your hair next to the studio here. It's like $20 at Sam's.
Yeah, I worry about that one.
Yeah, didn't work so well for me. So I want to share something with you. I'm driving yesterday in the car with San. We're listening to public broadcasting. And there's sort of an overview of the week and the month. And my goodness, I thought, wow, the things that are going on here in the world between the loss of privacy and boundaries. And, there's everything seems to be so wide open. And there's what's going on with our government and, boundaries. And these are, it occurred to me, we were talking and it occurred to me, these are not challenges that are going to be dealt with in a conventional way. And what came to mind was Dante. Midway through my life's journey, I came to a place in the dark wood and the way was lost. I don't feel lost, although I have in the past. I realize that the world is the dark place and that we are the lights. We have an opportunity and a responsibility, not a burden, but an opportunity to respond as the light of our times, as the light of the dark wood. And what would that light be?
Yeah,
it has something to do with re-enchanting the world, reimagining the world.
Well, it's the imagination.
Will
have a sense
was it Will Rogers we were talking about before?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't know the quote. You're the one that said it.
It's, if stupidity got us into this spot, why can't it get us out? Well, that sort of thinking. It's that sort of thinking. So what will loosen up the bounds of logic and reason without brooming them away? There's a re-enchanting, a reimagining, making our imaginations alive and living and vital and wild and juicy in ways that we have lost. We're so constricted. We're so bound into our past that we create our experience moment to moment out of our imagination and our expectation and our desire. But we simply are so hooked into what has been that's what we keep imagining and expecting, and it's not going to get any different.
It's not sufficient. Well, and so the way that quote could be reworked would be imagination got us into this, and by golly, imagination is going to have to get us out of it.
Yes, up-leveled. Juiced up.
And one of the things that you've brought, we've talked about it before on the show, is the idea of reimagining things. So when something feels constrictive, this response is, I need to reimagine this. Because the way I'm holding it is just it's too narrow. I want a bigger perspective. And we've talked about this with money. I want to reimagine money. We've talked about it a lot with success. Like a lot of the ways I've been conditioned.
How do we hold success?
To hold success. And so one of the things you brought up in the past, Barnet, which I loved, was sort of self-knowledge or an awareness of myself, or selves maybe. That's a measure for me of success. Right? So we're reimagining what success looks like because the hand-me-down thinking is too constrictive. It's what we've called structured imagination, what's been given, the four walls.
It's a bottle.
It's
a bottle. Einstein? What is that Einstein quote?
I like him.
Good guy. Do like him, right?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He is a good guy. Are you guys still playing pickup ball every?
That's right.
But what was that quote? Imagination is more important than knowledge.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. Well, last time we had a particular guest who I know you're going to introduce in a minute on the show. He said we've got to move beyond the five senses.
That's right.
And one of the senses that he thought we ought to bring online,
He's a smart dude.
and he's a smart dude,
Yeah.
was imagination. So
Yeah.
let's get him in this, because
Yeah,
I think he'll have more to say.
I got to say that this is the second time inside of like 8 days that I've had the pleasure of connecting with this guy. I am so thrilled. For over 40 years.
50 years. Over 50
Is it
years.
no? Is it 50
It's
years?
51. He told us last time he was on the show. He's been
No
at this
kidding.
for over
51
years.
years. Wow. Well, our guest has helped people use the power of their minds to achieve prosperity and rewarding relationships and spiritual awareness. He's the best-selling author of You Were Born Rich. He's transformed the lives of millions through his books, his seminars, his courses, his coaching, and his love. And I am really pleased.
And don't forget, he's a founding father of this kind of consciousness that we're talking about here.
He is. He is
Yes,
a founding father.
we ordained him that last time we had him on.
We did ordain him. He's father.
He's father.
So we couldn't be happier to welcome back Bob Proctor to Cutting Edge
Welcome back, Bob.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. You just made me feel about 109 years old.
Yeah, I tried to back away from that. That was your good friend Freeman that went down that road.
No, you got your foot in the door. That's the way it is.
We're recognizing the wisdom of, a lot of consideration of, the kinds of questions that we tend to bring up here on the show. And you've been at this, and you've scratched your head about it more than once, and so we look to you often when we say, okay, so, what's next, Bob? Like, we see what we've created and recreated, and we see the small story in the circle, backing up on itself, and we go, there's something on the other side of what we've done, and you're one of the, in my mind, elder statesmen of this whole process.
You're burying yourself here. Bob is a young dude.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying that, anyhow.
You want to have him back?
Seasoned. He's a seasoned professional. I'm not saving myself, am I, Bob?
Well, you're doing okay.
All right,
You're
bless
doing
you.
okay.
Bless you. Well,
I think each individual has to answer what's next.
Yes.
I don't think it's up to the government or the TV or the radio station or the library.
Yep.
I think we've been endowed with the ability to do that for ourselves. We want to create our own environment.
We do, and there are such opportunities to, more than ever before, we have access to so many mirrors that help us discover more of who we really are. You and I had the pleasure last week of teaching before a group of teens, of young kids in Las Vegas.
That's right.
And I don't know about you. I want to hear your takeaway of that. But I was absolutely lit up by the open hearts and the open minds, and how fully present these young people were, and how grounded they were in their bodies, and how unencumbered by their way that the world operates, how loosely they held that, how willing they were to imagine possibilities beyond what is presented in the media and in their world. What was your experience?
Oh, mine was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it, and I know you did. Everybody in the room enjoyed being with those kids, and there were so many of them. But a strange thing, I was speaking in San Diego on Saturday, and one of the young kids was there that I had spent some time talking to. And he was really into studying what makes us tick. Why do we do what we do? Why are we going where we're going, or how can I change things? He was a bright young guy. He was, I think, 15, 16. And he was out at a seminar that I was speaking at for Greg Reed down in San Diego. It was interesting.
Yes.
Well, at 15 years old, these kids are operating with
They're aware.
They're aware. They're just aware. They have raw materials of expectation and desire and a juicy imagination, and they have the tools to as you say, to be aware of when they are tracking back on their past. I mean, they were so sophisticated. It was heart-blowing.
But if you stop and think about it for a moment, kids are making up their mind. We have to change our mind. The adults have to change their mind. That's not an easy chore. And you have to really want to change to do the work you have to do. But the kids are making up their mind, and they're exposed to so much today. I mean, they've gathered more information by the time they're 15 than our parents and grandparents did in their entire life. It's they're bright, they're aware. I'm telling you, I think it's good.
Yeah,
I think it's fantastic.
And I love, I'll remind our audience, if you didn't listen to the first time Bob came on, he said something that we've been quoting ever since, talking about this generation, these young people. He said, we've got to, we've raised generations of little go-getters. We've got to raise a generation of little go-givers. That was something, Bob, you said last time you were on the show, and we've of course quoted you a number of times. And that's really the premise, is that these kids get that there's a bigger game than the small story that's presented. I mean, I think often about, we see, I think about the environment that young people, the work environment, what's been presented in terms of opportunities. I got to spend some time up in Silicon Valley recently doing some work up there, and there's so many startups and there's so many young people doing such amazing stuff. And there's something, they're lit in a particular way. I think seeing maybe their fathers, your generation, my generation, Barnett's generation, seeing them workaholism, seeing how we've ground it down with this little go-getter mentality, and it doesn't feel good to them. So they're really lit in a different way, and I'd love for you to speak to that.
Well, the debt that has been created going to school, the school debt in North America, is greater than the credit card debt, and they cannot bankrupt themselves out of it. And here they are coming out of school. They've got the degree. They've paid for it. They borrowed the money to pay for it, and they can't find work.
Yeah.
Now, that is rocking them. That is really rocking them on their heels. And I think it's causing them to look and say, wait a minute, we didn't set this deal up. This is not right. And so they've quit listening to a lot of the mass consciousness that got us to where we are. And that is, I think, a motivation for them to think on a totally different level. And they're not looking at it the same.
Yeah,
See, I think they're aware of something that the parents probably weren't aware of. All the little creatures on the planet are completely at home in their environment. The birds blend in with the trees, the animals with the forest. We're totally disoriented in our environment. They blend in. We're totally disoriented because we were given the ability to create our own environment, and the parents didn't do a very good job of it, and the kids are looking at the fix they're in, and they say, well, we're going to change this deal. And they are thinking different. Those kids that we were with, Barnett, they're different than a lot of the kids that I knew when I was a kid.
They're different than a lot of the adults I know as an adult.
That's exactly.
I mean, it was very, very inspiring to be in that room. There's one thing, you point to this situation that so many of these young people are in. Those kids in the room, they didn't seem to be entranced, beguiled in the same way that we have made in the culture. Success, money has become somehow perverted. It's become almost a substitute for spirituality. It's almost like a mundane for people that do not have a connection. I have not been able to find a connection with the timeless and what is more. The pursuit of what they call success and money for money's sake has been elevated to almost a religion. And in the room with those kids, they were very clear to me about the distinction between that. They understood that a connection with spirit and an understanding of themselves and of fundamental laws of how spirit works through and into the world was a centering place for them. They were very, very clear about that.
Oh yeah, they really were. There was they didn't have that mixed up at all. I think they realize money is an important commodity. It's the medium of exchange we use, but it's not the end in itself, and they understand that. I think they understand that they are spiritual beings. They've been gifted with these phenomenal mental faculties, and they're developing them. And so I think they're going to live in a pretty good world. Quite frankly, I'm very optimistic about where we're going. I know there's all kinds of problems in different places, but overall, I think we're going in the right direction. I believe that everything once was perfect, and we're returning to a point that once was.
Yeah, and this is a testament to your legacy, is that your ability from an early age, because I think you were one of these kids, maybe before it was fashionable.
Is it fashionable?
Well, I don't even know if it's fashionable. Before the trend set in to where people said, enough with that old story, we're going to make up our own. We're going to imagine possibilities that are beyond what's being handed to us. We have a break. So
let's sell some stuff.
Let's sell some stuff. When we get back from selling some stuff, Bob, we're going to jump right back in with you. So folks, stay with us. We'll be right back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Barnet Bain and our wonderful guest, Bob Proctor. Before the break, I was just sort of pointing to Bob saying, look, you, Bob, have been able to imagine possibilities that maybe other people around you weren't imagining. You were able to tap into or tune into conversations that you knew would elevate your life. And so I want to kind of throw this to you because it kind of runs both ways in that you had the spirit of these kids that there's something bigger that juices you up is a theme, at least from my perspective, for your life. And I'd like to talk about that because that's where a lot of people have trouble imagining beyond the sort of small story. So help our listeners, maybe outline some of the qualities, at least in your experience, that can get the spirit juiced up and the imagination going.
Well, I think, first of all, we have to take a look at how we're conditioned, because we're conditioned genetically right from the moment of conception, and then we're conditioned environmentally in our little life. That's where we learn to speak the language we speak. It's like the food, do everything. I mean, we're literally programmed before we ever go to school. We're able to use our imagination at home as a little kid because it gets you out from under your parents' feet. And, playing with pots and pans, turn them into whatever in your mind. But when you go to school, you start using your imagination and you get punished. That's not paying attention. And so we get that sort of killed. And we are programmed to live through our senses, to go by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. So the conditions and circumstance that surround us become our way of thinking. We let them control our thinking, and we get emotionally involved, and then we create more of the same. And so that's where you find about 90% of the population habitually keep getting the same results year after year after year. It's inconceivable that an intelligent human being would live their whole life in debt and keep coming up with results they don't want. And the only alternative is to get into using your higher faculties. You have perception, the will, intuition, reason, memory, and imagination. And the imagination will take you away from the conditions and circumstance and give you the ability to build the image of the life you want. I mean, that's what Marconi did, or we wouldn't be working on the radio right now. That's what Graham Bell did, or I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm in Toronto and you're in California. So we have to stop and think, how did these people pull this deal off? They separated themselves from the masses. They used their imagination to build an image of where they wanted to go, and then they focused on it and made it happen. And that's what we want to do as individuals.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that is it. I'm cheering. I'm absolutely cheering.
The transition that must take place within, from letting the conditions and circumstance and our present results control us, to living and working with the image that we build in our mind, is not an easy one. Because the old paradigm, the old conditioning is going to pull you right back focused, but you got to look at reality. Well, the Wright brothers didn't look at reality. Edison didn't look at reality. Reality is a bunch of jazz. Reality is a limitation that we're programmed to buy into. We've got to create our world,
and
create our own economy.
It is a moment-to-moment undertaking, as I understand it, because it is so much easier to imagine the past. We are familiar with it. We've come to expect it, and so we keep tracking back to the past, throwing it out in front of us, and then we look shocked and disappointed when we create it again.
Yeah, but that isn't imagining the past. That's using your memory, another intellectual factor, to go backwards in your life. Our imagination takes us forward. Memory
Great distinction.
Won't take us ahead. It only takes us back.
Yeah.
Let's use our imagination and quit going backwards and start going forward.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That is a great distinction.
You know, my sense is really such a beautiful word too. The sense, you know, even a sense of vision. When I think of vision, because I'm imagining in this moment that we're all working with some level of vision. Something attracts us that is just beyond our grasp. You know, the whole nature of an innovation is it's something you can't possibly know where you are right now. And that's the nature of it. It's something that hasn't yet occurred. But the thread that sort of gets us there, that sense, the sense that there's a possibility, or the scent even, the scent of something that's attractive. So for me, when I get fired up about something, I'm even tracking how quickly I start limiting the sensation. I start limiting it to outcomes. And I'm watching in my own experience and frankly bothered by my propensity to try to name it and define it and whatnot. So if I share my own experience, there's a little bit of discomfort because, again, tracking back is comfortable. It's what's known. But this really throwing myself out and going, I'm really willing to embrace the mystery. I'm willing to allow this to play out in ways that at this moment I can't even imagine. So that's where I'm at with this whole process.
Well, you know, what you're saying there is so accurate, but even what you're talking about is something when you said that as if that was a common occurrence. When you do that, it's not a common occurrence. First of all, the people that are looking ahead, they fall into a very small category of people. Most of your listening audience may not be doing that. 90-some% of the population don't do that. And, you know, we do what's comfortable, and comfortable is keeping us where we are.
Yeah.
Our goals, our vision, where we're going, should scare the living daylights out of us and excite us at the same time. Because, you see, the excitement is we're going after what we want. The fear is we're going where we've never been.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I call that a terror barrier. But if my goals don't scare me, I know they're not very good.
That is great.
They should be dreadful. Because if I realize my dreams, then I will not recognize myself. That's both the exciting thing.
That is great,
and
Barnet.
that's what holds us back.
If I realize my dreams, then I won't recognize myself.
Well, I'll recognize some part of me, but
No, of course.
but all of the safe playing and all of the adaptive behaviors, I won't recognize. I want to go back to a question that I asked you, Bob, last time you were on the program.
The one that he built the banner around?
Yeah,
I
it
love
was
that.
so in the air. It was so in the ethers that not only did you have you had a response, but you had an entire marquee already built and standing in front of your group before I had even said the question. So I'm going to repeat that question. What have you done recently for the first time?
When was
the last time you did something for the first time?
When was the last time I did something for the first time? I think I did it on Saturday. I took our most expensive product. It runs around $1,295. It's a 12 video. It's a very, very powerful program. And I was speaking at a meeting in San Diego. It was called Secret Knock. I wasn't quite sure what the secret was.
Do you know what the knock was?
They had about 235 people that were going to be in this meeting, and the rules is you can't sell anything to the audience. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give them a program. So I took this big program, and I had 235 of them shipped down there. I sent a couple of ladies from our company down. They gift wrapped them, and I gave them to everybody.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
And they're looking at me kind of strange, like, what's the catch? But that was the first time I'd done that. Now, I often give the books away, things like that, but I had never given a really expensive program to the whole audience. And that was the first time I did that, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, how did that feel?
It felt really good.
You know, this is again, I hate to keep harkening back to the last conversation, but the last time you were on the show.
Yeah, get in the present.
No, but here's what what was so thrilling for me. There's a quote by Picasso, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away, is to find the most delicious, exciting ways to spread it as far and wide as we possibly can. And I really love that. You know, I love that. And then what you said on the show the last time is the whole little go-givers to little go-getters. Little go-getters moving to little go-givers. That the whole law of giving and then allowing the ways that the reciprocation comes in to just be the ways it comes in. That orientation, to me, is exciting.
Repeat that, Picasso. I loved it.
That the meaning of life is to find your gift. The purpose of life is to give it away.
It's great.
Well, you know something? That is really good. I spent 9 years, like I came from nowhere. I never went to school. I had no business experience. I started cleaning floors. I ended up cleaning floors in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. I took my income from 4,000 over $1 million in less than 5 years, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But I was reading Think and Grow Rich, and I was listening to Earl Nightingale, and I was really racking my brain. What happened to me? Now, what happened, I wanted to find out. It took me 9 years. I ended up leaving my own company and going to work with Earl Nightingale. I took a cut from a few $100,000 to $18,000 a year in income, and 5 years later I was earning 33. But I was prepared to pay them to let me work there.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out what happened. It took me 9 years of studying with some really brilliant people, and I figured it out. When I figured it out, all I wanted to do was share it with everybody.
That's it.
I love this quote because it's what's happened to me.
Yeah.
But I was shy. I was quiet. I was withdrawn. I couldn't ask a question in a crowd. And I had to learn how to stand up in front of an audience and be totally relaxed and share what I had learned.
Yeah,
Bill Gove taught me how to do that.
So the compelling part about this, when it's like something captures our imagination, it grabs us in a particular way. I call it the scent of destiny. Something that's a scent. We pick it up, and it's so compelling we can't let go of it. And then every way in which I've previously defined myself, I'm willing to put down because it's so compelling. That's my experience of what you're talking about. That, you know, even what I do today, this whole radio thing has been a crazy ride of just, I don't know why I do it. I mean, I kind of know how I got into it, but then the sharing of it and I got to do it. And it doesn't always make sense, you know, but who cares? It's big.
Just before you said that, I was thinking, you guys have got a good show. You're helping a lot of people. You may never even know who they are, but you are.
Well, it feels good.
That's such a great regulator. What you just said, Barnett. What am I using as my modulators?
It feels good.
It feels good is a great modulator. Previously, I would be in my head trying to think this thing. I'm going to think my way to success. I'm going to think my way. What if we feel our way? What if we feel our way into that darkness you were talking about that Dante was referencing? That if I can feel my way,
and then you turn up the light.
And then you turn up the light.
You shine you shine your light. You shine what you have to give.
The feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. Now think of this. Feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. If you feel good, your mind body's in a good vibration. If you feel bad, your mind body's in a bad vibration. Vibration is the law of the universe. Everything vibrates. Our brain is an electronic switching station that alters the vibration we're in. Now get this. I have studied a long time. A great teacher taught me the sound of God evolves through the law of vibration. And your intuition picks up those vibrations. So if you're feeling good, you're tuned in.
So no diminishing of Napoleon Hill's amazing work, but maybe the next version is Feel and Grow Rich.
very good.
Maybe that's the next iteration.
Good.
Because thinking only has taken us a long way. It's brilliant.
There's a book
you
there.
know? It has. We've thought our way into all kinds of amazing things, and it's great. But I think the next level of senses beyond the 5 that are going to take us to the next place, wherever that is this kind of felt sense.
But, you can validate that. Solomon said, as a person thinketh in their heart. The early Greeks referred to the heart as the subjective, the universal mind. It's not this pump in our chest.
No.
It's the idea, it's the universal mind. Thinking is a conscious activity. It's of the conscious mind. We don't really become what we think about. We become what we internalize and plant in our heart, and there's the level of feeling. So what you're saying is scientifically and spiritually accurate.
Beautiful. Yeah, Marcus Aurelius said the same thing. So many have said the same thing. To have a deepening awareness, an embodied awareness. On this show, we've spent a few years largely in our heads.
He just outed us. Oh.
Largely in our heads, but you have to, there's power in the telling, and eventually some of that drops down into your heart. That you begin to hook up the master cylinder.
Yeah. So the explanation of that is we're comfortable in our heads, but the courage is to, which of course comes from the French word "cœur," which means heart.
The frontier is the
courage is to go into the heart. And sometimes my head, is following. It's been leading for a long time, but that hasn't gotten me as far.
That is a terrain. That is a terrain that brings online whole new capacity to imagine and to reimagine. It's
I've been working since very early this morning, and it's a little later where I am, about 3 hours later than where you are. But I started very early this morning making a PowerPoint show on the word praxis, Praxis. Praxis is the integration of belief with behavior. Everyone says you got to believe. William James says, believe, your belief will create the fact. All the way through the Bible, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran. They all say you have to believe. Well, you can believe something on a conscious level. Like you say to somebody, you believe you could double your income, and the person will think for a minute, and they'll say, I believe I could do that. But their behavior indicates that they never heard of that because their income is stuck. So we believe on 2 levels. You believe on a conscious level. That's your intellectual, your thinking mind, but it's your subconscious mind that's controlling you, and that's where the paradigm is, and we've got to integrate that belief of what we can do with our behavior. In other words, you got to change the paradigm. You got to change the conditioning.
It's interesting because I almost want to track back to the Picasso quote and then reference the first time you were on the show. Do you believe that you have a gift to give? Do you believe that you have a unique gift to give in the world? And then I guess the second question is, do you believe it has value? Because that then changes.
That's a very, very mature, a very seasoned insight to the self. That comes on the heels of a lot of self-reflection and a lot of putting together the various parts and an intimacy with your subconscious.
Yeah.
Because as Bob just said, you're running on 2 separate tracks. I can say all kinds of things. I can say, saying don't make it so.
Absolutely. Thinking don't make it so.
Well, I'll tell you what's so. What's so is unbelievably we have collapsed time and we've collapsed space.
Oh. Well, you know what? It just keeps beckoning us to invite you back again, Bob.
Yeah, we just need to have you on as our co-host.
I hope you like it here because we sure like having you.
I like being here. Let me leave you with a quote. I just had this sent to me yesterday or the day before. It was a tweet by Jim Carrey. He said there are a few things missing in The Secret. Carrey is right. And he said, where is it? Here's what was left out of The Secret. You can manifest anything in the world, but first you must convince yourself you deserve it.
Wow.
Isn't that nice?
So with that, I want to extend right now an invitation for you to come back and we'll talk about deserving.
Oh, that's
you
fantastic.
give Gina a call, set it up, and I'll be glad to come on anytime.
We love you. We will see you next time for the Deserving Show. Thanks so much for joining us.
And for listeners, please visit bobproctor.com, and stay in touch with everything that Bob Proctor is doing, and stay with us because we'll be right back to wrap up
It's a
after.
profit and a pleasure dealing with you, gentlemen.
All right, thanks, Bob. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
How much do we love Bob Proctor?
Yeah,
That guy is just
great guy.
a delight.
Great guy.
He's a delight, and I've had the pleasure, and you've had a lot more time with him, but to just spend some time one-on-one. I had a chat with him at Cynthia Kersey's Unstoppable Foundation event, and I have to just say, he is so sincere, so genuine, and he's that way in person, and he's obviously that way publicly, and he's just a gift. So I feel very blessed to have him in our community, part of this broadcast, specifically this broadcast, but the larger consciousness of the broadcast. So yeah, wow.
Well, there are many beautiful qualities to Bob. I don't want to blow too much smoke up his cuff, but but there are so many beautiful qualities, and chief among them for me is that he has so integrated. He's so, there's this cliche about walking one's talk, but when somebody's been at it for over 50 years, it is no longer conceptual. So it is fully embodied. It's not an idea that's being thrown out, nor is it when we have the pleasure to speak with Bob or to listen to Bob. He is not passing on secondhand information. It's experienced. It is personal.
Yes.
Emerges out of his personal relationship with these experiences.
And what I love is, to say I'm a lifelong learner, that's fine, but it's so easy. And you and I have talked about this, to track back to our expertise and what we know. But, you can feel in the moment with him where an exciting idea comes up and everyone gets excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you, I, and him, and we're all tracking because the love of learning, the love of exploring, the adventure of what new idea, what possibility is going to open up a new portal for me as an individual, and then obviously for the larger listening audience in this case. But who knows,
Well, this is a really big deal that you're touching on here for me. A really, really big deal. We, you and I, when we talk editorially about where the show is going, we come up against this time and time and time again. I call it the dream stealer. That's not original language with me. But, we have ideas about where we want to go. And there comes a point at which we have to let those ideas fall away and invite the dream stealer to come and spirit them off.
Yeah.
So that we can reinvent and we can up-level to the next exploration, to the next discovery, to the next empowerment, the next enlightenment, the next arena in which to both receive and give love and light. So Bob is constantly reinventing, and it is the more that I attune my own process to the imperative of that, the more aware I am when I can recognize it in other people.
And how does it feel?
It feels good and true.
And I trust that. So again, it's so interesting. And I know I've said this before, but I'm going to repeat it because it's so important for me. The trust your feelings, the wisdom of the trust your feelings, trust your ability to sense things. It is value. It's a truth, but there is a way, and I don't want to
trust your feelings does not necessarily mean act on them. Just for
and our feelings have to be trustworthy because again,
all
often
all feelings are trustworthy. It is us who decides. It's whether or not we're trustworthy. Feelings are feelings. They're energy that moves through you.
Right. No, I agree with you.
So
I agree
it is. Am I giving it up to what aspect of myself? So, and have I demonstrated to myself sufficiently that I have the integrity to make decisions and back them up, and that they are aligned with my values, and that they're aligned with my character? And if so, and if I've demonstrated that continually and consistently, if I have earned my own trust, then I'm trustworthy. But a feeling is not any more trustworthy than the microphone.
Right.
It just is.
Yeah. And that was beautifully put. I want to go back. Then one of the things I said in the previous segment about how I'll get fired up about something, and then I watch how all that inspiration gets diminished when I try to find the outcome for it, because that's the way my brain or I've been programmed to operate.
All of it. We want to control.
Yeah. So this letting it bubble up and then very purposefully, very consciously unwinding it from all the ways that I want to narrow and limit it and call it something, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And following that. I mean, it's courageous work. Follow a thought into I don't know. Come up with a question you don't know the answer to. Go with that and let that take us. And what we've sort of, expressed here is, God, it feels good. It feels good to let go of the control, if you will, to let go of.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes not so
here's
good.
Here's a practice that I have been doing with some regularity, a ritual. I've made a ritual, a ceremony of doing it with some regularity.
Yeah.
To this point, is that in my meditative experience, I will imagine myself walking through an inner landscape, and I imagine myself moving to the edge of time and space. It's just suddenly, there's like this cliff, there's nothing beyond it. And then in this void, I imagine suddenly a tiny pinprick of light, and I reach for it, and I reach for it, and I reach for it, and I can't seem to get it. And then I'll throw myself out for it and grab onto what turns out to be a rope of light. And then I just sort of swing into the unknown.
I love that.
There is an intention behind it of making myself comfortable with an experience of not having to have it add up to something. Can I do something? My logical ego brain says, well, what's the point of doing something if you can't have it predict an outcome, or if you can't monetize it, or if it's not useful for something? But just that I am able to do that seems to me to be an edge of mine, a creative edge, and it also allows me to develop some kind of relationship with what's totally unknown and doesn't make any sense.
I like that, and I like the make a practice of it. One of the things we've talked about is practicing putting down our expert just in a moment and see what pops up. See what happens when we go into what we've called the sacred I don't know. See what happens if we consciously disengage a kind of mechanistic control habit, consciously disengage that and float for a minute and kind of see what happens. It's an interesting expression too, float. I think I've told the story that when Jasmine and I first met, actually the first day I met Josh, which was about 4 months into our relationship, they would do this thing at night called floating. And she invited me or Josh actually invited me. We'd had this long day, fun day. He had invited me to come in and float with them. And so Jasmine came out. I was sitting in her dining room. We had just had a pizza dinner, and he was in his pajamas and off to bed. He was 10 years old at the time, 13 years ago. And so I came in, and they floated. And it was this free association. And similar to what Bob was saying, kids are so brilliant because they're making up their mind. they're making it up. They haven't locked in yet. And just to hear him at 10 floating through all these experiences of the day was really magical. So that brought that to mind for me of remembering to float, and knowing I can float. I can take that analogy even of floating, where, thinking I need the floaty device next to me and realizing at some point I really don't need it. Even with practices, even with tools, it's like sometimes the tool, I associate the tool with what the experience is. And I have to remember that it's not necessarily the tool. It's innate, right? Do you know what I'm talking about right now? I've sort of drifted between several things.
I hear some of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I hear a couple of things, and
Yeah.
they are all exciting and they are all stimulating to me.
At least someone knows what I'm talking about.
It's all individual. It's all so.
Right.
What I heard that I thought, wow, there's something that you sparked something in me. I love the floating idea, and I thought that is also a practice. I may not do it as on a regular basis, but I am going to experiment with taking myself into a meditative experience of being with that small version of myself that is 10 years old, going to visit him in his bedroom in Saint-Agathe-des-Monts, Quebec, Canada.
In his PJs?
And in his little flannel PJs, and with, the dead of night. And I will float with him and help him float.
I like the sensation of that. It reminds me of as a kid up in the Napa Valley, I would go to visit my grandparents, and I would lay in a hammock. And they were days that weren't filled with video games. We didn't really watch TV, and we didn't have video games. And I would lay out there in the hammock, and I would literally look up at the sky and watch the clouds and see what I saw, and similar quality of just that younger part of me. That hadn't made up my mind yet about how the world works.
So I want to reconnect with the younger part of me that hadn't made up his mind, so that I can be re-inspired by his innocence. And at the same time, I want to be able to comfort him because it was difficult.
Yeah.
I don't think, some people have more or less difficult childhoods, but as it pertains to the erosion of our magical, wild imagination.
Yeah.
We all have it structured away from us.
Yeah.
We all allow it to be structured away from us, or it is, or we're told, stop daydreaming. And so I both want to be re-inspired by him, and I also want to give him comfort, because those were not easy times, and just to let him know that he's not alone.
I like that. And I like the language that we've come up with in the past, a mature innocence. So where, the younger part of us had in the innocence this breadth of possibility.
And no tools.
But not the tools. So as we matured, maybe we lost some of that. And even with the tools, sometimes we can be over-identified with the tools and lose a bit of that. That's what I was trying to talk about with floating, is that sometimes,
sometimes you have to let those tools, you have to set down those tools and be willing to stretch for a higher edge.
Beautiful.
And at that higher edge, there will be new tools.
That's right.
But we can become overly reliant, or we can become dependent upon our relationship with tools or with processing
for
or
us,
fixing,
it's
or
for us on this show,
words.
We love our words.
We love words.
And so that's wonderful. The mature innocence. I love that language. It's such a beautiful image. And yet if I say it, 150 times, it becomes brittle. It's like the offer word that, okay, Freeman, enough with the offer. I mean, the spirit of it, right. The spirit of it is beautiful. But then at some point we're repeating in a way that now we've lost the edge of possibility. Now we're back to, a control game, unconsciously, not intentionally, but yeah. So it's fascinating how, it's, there's a, and I feel this about Bob's work. There's a rigor or a diligence in keeping it fresh. I love that this morning he was playing with a word, and building out this word to find some.
Well, that
some
he was
juice in
playing.
it. He was playing.
The
There you go.
the guy plays.
He does play. He does.
The guy plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows how to play.
And speaking of playing, our playtime is quickly coming to a close. So we want to invite you all, folks, to join the community. If you haven't already, please join us on Facebook. Like us. We like being liked, and keep tuning in to Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Thank you for listening, and back next time.